Okay, great. So officially, guys, we are officially live. So as we wait for more people to join the live Hangouts, first I wanted to thank everybody for showing up today. My name is Errol Zdalga. I'm one of the physicians at Stanford. I'm a hospitalist and also in charge of communication. I get to introduce the person who will be moderating this discussion today. Before I do that, I just want to mention this is currently a live Google Hangouts. We'll have people invited to come and ask questions. We have recent applicants who just interviewed at the Stanford Internal Medicine Residency program, as well as really this is open to anybody who's interested in potentially coming to join us in the future, and really anybody who just wants to know what we do. And we'd love to explain and share with you more about who we are and what we do and how important education, patient care, and research and all the things we do are. So without further ado, one last thing I'd like to mention as well is this is going to be a live Hangouts, but we'll also output this as a YouTube video that will be available on our websites and promoted, as well as a podcast will be coming out later. For those of you on the live broadcast right now, in your upper right-hand corner, there is a grid where you can click on question-answer section, and we'll invite you to come and join us and ask questions. And really, we're here to answer any of your questions while we talk about the program today. So I'd like to introduce our program director of the Internal Medicine Residency Program, Dr. Ron will tell us, and he'll lead and moderate our discussion today. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Errol, and thank you, everybody, for joining us today. It's our inaugural Google Hangout. We're very excited about it. Really, our goal today is to provide information and answers to any of your questions. We have a wonderful team of people here to do that. Again, thank you for joining us. To leave time for many questions, I'm going to keep my remarks brief and turn it over to our chair of the Department of Medicine, Dr. Bob Harrington, to introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks, Ron, and thanks, Errol, for arranging this. As was said, my name is Bob Harrington. I met many of you while you were here interviewing at Stanford. I'm the chair of medicine here. We're delighted to have you online with us, and we are ready to answer any and all questions that you might have regarding the Department of Medicine, our residency training program, being at Stanford University, or living in the Bay Area. So with that as background, I'll pass the baton to Abraham.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I think I met many of you. I had a chance to address you when you came for your interview. I'm the vice chair for the Department of Medicine, and this is my first Google Hangout. And I look forward to hearing your questions. So thank you. And I'll pass it on to Neera. I think you're next.
Hi, I'm Neera Ahuja, and I'm one of the Associate Residency Program Directors, and I'm also the Director of our Hospitals Program. Very excited to be on this Hangout and hear your questions. I'm going to pass it over to Wendy Caceres.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Wendy Caceres. I was a resident here. I just graduated, and now I'm one of the primary care attendings. I think I met many of you who are interested in primary care when you came to interview. So I'm happy to answer questions about residency life and primary care at Stanford. I'm going to turn it over to Jim.
All right, my name is Jim Bunyaratana-Kornkit. I'm one of the chief residents. It was a pleasure meeting a lot of you during your interview season. Congratulations on finishing. And I think this is my second time on Google Hangouts. It's a testament to our innovation at Stanford in the integration of medicine and technology. So looking forward to your questions. I'll hand it over to my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Weaver.
Hi, everybody. My name's Kate Weaver. I'm one of the current third-year residents at Stanford Internal Medicine Residency, and I'm one of next year's chief residents. We're really happy to have all of you on. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, so it'd be great to launch right into questions, as this is our inaugural time. We know we're going to have some bugs. Errol, I can't see any of the questions, so unless it's not a big deal, if you just want to pick some of the questions, and we can go that way.
So we'll start asking a lot of your viewers right now. So we have a decent amount of viewers watching us. Guys, feel free to come in and ask any questions you like. They haven't started popping up yet, but we expect to see them coming up soon. And it may be a little bug here, but we'll see if we can get that fixed. In the meantime, Ron, do you want to start by telling us a little bit more about the pathways of distinction and a little bit more about how you plan to see that be launched throughout the year?
Yeah, absolutely. So each year in the residency program, we really like to undertake one big new initiative. This year's is the Pathways of Distinction, or PODS. The goal here is to really make sure that everybody leaves the program with an extra skill set above and beyond what we fully intend to be a world-class education in internal medicine. And the goal is to choose one of the 7 areas in the Pathways of Distinction that we have details about on our website and in the brochures that all of our applicants received. And it's not just, the idea of the pathways is not to be subspecialty specific, but broader than that, things like clinical research, basic science, quality improvement, primary care, underserved pathways and global health, innovation, biodesign, clinical teaching. Each one of these pathways will involve events throughout the year. Some of these will be career counseling events, some of these will be speakers, some of them will be things like courses or time in the simulation lab. And we're really excited about it. We have senior members of the department leading each of the pathways of distinction. We think it's going to be a real value added for each member of the program. And again, it's going to be launching with the brand new intern class coming in June.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Abraham, I was wondering if you can tell us more about your being part of one of the Pathways of Distinction, the educational pathway and medical education, to be specific. Can you tell us more about how you envision that to play out and the value of that, having that pathway?
Well, we're very excited about the pathway, and as you can tell, since it's our first year, it's very much something that we're giving a lot of thought to, and it's still sort of under construction. But my sense is that there are residents out there who really value the idea of being great educators, see themselves as perhaps becoming academicians without necessarily a portfolio in basic science or applied research, but being teachers and educators. And to that end, we were hoping to construct a pathway of distinction that would really be added value for them. Broadly speaking, it would probably include an element of applied bedside medicine, where they really participate perhaps more than any other group in our rounds, and also in teaching in the medical student education and other elements of bedside teaching. We'd hope that they also have a research portfolio, that they would have something that they work on throughout their 3 years, and we'd also very much hope that we're building a community of folks who, over the years will expand and perhaps go to other places and very much continue to elevate our interest in bedside medicine. So that's a preamble. I can't get too much more specific because we're very much still working on this.
I see we have our first question that's come in the Q&A, and please, again, I'd like to encourage everybody who's viewing right now to ask questions. The first question we have, maybe I'll turn to Wendy to address, and that is, how diverse is the patient population?
Thanks, Ron. This is a great question. It's something that's near and dear to my heart. I didn't mention I was also a medical student here, so I've seen how diverse the population that Stanford takes care of and addresses is. Part of that is helped by the fact that in residency you go to 3 different hospitals. So we have the hospital that, and then if any of you want to chime in more about the other hospitals, that would be great. But there's a county hospital down in San Jose, the Santa Clara Valley, that we do rotations at. Here at Stanford, I think mostly because we're a catchment area for a lot of Central California, we see patients of all backgrounds, all socioeconomic status, with a myriad of health outcomes. So I do think you will have a very broad exposure to patients from all walks of life here at Stanford.
Jim, Kate, maybe, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I actually, thank you for inviting me to add my thoughts on that too, actually. I found that experience at the Santa Clara Valley Hospital, the 3rd hospital of our 3-hospital system. To me, it was the 1st hospital, because for me it was one of my favorite rotations, rotating to Santa Clara Valley Hospital, which is a humongous catchment area as a county hospital, which is extremely well run, very efficient, and the hospitalists there are really devoted to your teaching and your training as well. As a resident, I was able to go to the Valley Hospital every single year, and there's great flexibility. If you're interested in taking care of underserved, uninsured patients, then that is absolutely accessible to you. You can spend up to 2 months every year, and if you really have a strong desire in really providing care and getting experience in that area, we do have a lot of flexibility in our schedules to allow that during the second and third years of our senior residency.
Okay, as a lot of questions are now coming in, and thank you everybody for submitting that. I'm going to turn first off. I'm going to point out one of our applicants kindly points out that it's not a question but a fix maybe for people who can't see the question tabs, noting that if you click the icon in the top right with the squares and select questions, then you can submit questions by clicking the green button on the bottom of the right column. So a little advice from somebody. And then let me turn to the next question we have, which again is noted to be directed to the current residents at Stanford. Asking what was the most important factor that factored into your decision to choose Stanford between other programs?
That's a great question. One we get a lot during interview season, a really important question. And you know, I think that one thing I've said over and over again is, you know, for me, it's different for every person. What is the most important or the most standout factor that leads them to choose Stanford as a program? For me, it was the residents, the other residents that I met on the day, and really the applicants, the other applicants on the interview day and the interview dinner. And you know, we get thousands of applicants every year, and we only choose to interview a certain portion of those. And so the people that are chosen to interview, I mean, that should really represent the kind of people that we're as a program are interested in meeting and working with. So for me, that was the most important thing, just because I knew as an internal medicine resident we work so closely together in teams. It's so important. And then I'll say that sort of difficult to describe, untangible feeling that you get on the interview day is also really important. And that shouldn't be pushed aside, because that feeling that you get at the interview dinner and during the interview day is also extremely important and represents probably more than you think about the next 3 years.
Jim, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit about my story. I came here interviewing as a research track applicant, and I had the fortune of staying at Stanford for 2 days during my interview. And the second day, when I got a chance to talk to a lot of the research mentors and research faculty, really gave me a lot of excitement for the innovation at Stanford. And it was a clear choice for me that Stanford was going to be by far and away my first choice as a residency. Now, that being said, I came in as a short tracker to finish the program in 2 years and to enter into fellowship. Some of the applicants, I've told you my story in that I stayed on as a third year, and here I am as a fourth year. That's one of the chief residents. And really that was, I deliberately did that because of the clinical training. It's something that really was quite an amazing experience for me. And so I give you that story as evidence that Stanford, the environment here was such a rich and supportive place for both research and clinical training by really giants in the field like Dr. Verghese, and with Dr. Harrington's mentorship as one, the mentorship from Ron and his support, and also Neera. Really, I felt this was a place of golden opportunity. You know, California is often known as the Golden State, and I think Stanford is also representative of that opportunity. And it is for every individual a little bit of a different mindset in terms of goals, but for me it was a great fit. I would echo Kate's thoughts as well, that you know, you come in with a feel, and if you feel the environment is right, you're going to thrive here. And I feel like a lot of the applicants I met, you know, we do have a great selection process from Ron and Neera and also Errol in terms of usually looking through your applications very carefully to make sure that you are a fit. So by virtue of you coming here, I think we do feel like you are a good fit.
Great. Thank you, Jim. A lot of questions coming in. Thank you, everybody, for submitting these. The next one I see a lot of people are interested in is, and maybe I'll turn to Dr. Harrington to give us his thoughts, and some of us others can as well, which is that Stanford has a reputation for innovation, and what are some stories of innovation that you've experienced?
So certainly from my perspective, one of our hallmarks, or one of our differentiating features, is this spirit of innovation on campus, this spirit of entrepreneurial behavior, and it's no surprise that we see the same in the surrounding area. So let me give you some examples. One that we talk about when You're on campus here is our biodesign program, which is a collaboration between the School of Medicine and the School of Engineering through bioengineering. This year-long program really teaches people how to think about a medical problem and then solve it through the invention of a medical or technology solution. Now, that's our most well-known example here on campus. Biodesign just celebrated its 10th anniversary, but that sort of thinking has led to people like Arnie Milstein doing the Clinical Excellence Research Center, which is using the techniques of biodesign, the techniques of design thinking to think about health services and how do we recreate or how do we innovate in the health system to create programs whereby people get better care. We have one of the graduates of our program, Sumbul Desai, who is a Associate Chief Medical Officer, one of our hospitalists, and is in charge of strategy and innovation for the health system. We are doing things like this to try to provide you information. There is a spirit of innovation across the residency, across the department, across the university that I think is unique and, in fact, is one of our defining characteristics.
Great. For the sake next week, again, our current residents or recent residents can answer, and that is, where do residents live?
Sure, I can start off with that. So the hospital is in Palo Alto, and it's surrounded by a few different cities, Menlo Park to the north and Redwood City to the north, and then Mountain View and Los Altos to the south. So really in those 5 areas, there are apartments, houses that people find and rent, whether it's kind of through emailing the resident list or looking on Craigslist. That's usually kind of how it turns out. I started by living in a house in Menlo Park, and then I recently moved to Mountain View. So my commute now to Stanford is probably 20 minutes. When I lived in Menlo Park, it was 7 minutes. But no, it's great. There are lots of different areas to live in. And then I think Jim can probably talk more about the on-campus housing, Welch Road, which is a housing location that you can live in by lottery selection.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. So I lived in Menlo Park as well during my first year. And then for 2 years out of my residency, I was fortunate to live in Welch Road Apartments, which is the on-campus subsidized housing. Kate's commute was 7 minutes. I assume she meant driving. The commute from Welch Road was a 5-minute walk, and that was extremely convenient. It's subsidized by the hospital for our residents. They have studios, 1-bedrooms, 1-bedroom lofts, 2-bedroom apartments, and it's really a great environment for families and for residents. It's a great community. We've had several pool parties and barbecues as well. It really was a fun community. You really get to interact with other colleagues outside of your department as well, including surgery, psychiatry, and neurology. The rent for me was about $1,050 for a studio, and the 2 bedrooms at that time were going for about $1,700. It is very affordable, and your pay scale at Stanford is your pay is scaled at Stanford to accommodate the cost of living of Palo Alto. I'd never had to moonlight or do extra jobs. I lived quite comfortably at the Welch Road Apartments for 2 years. The parking there is free as well, so you save on parking if you live there. Parking at the hospital is just $30 per month, as Kate can probably attest to, and really is quite affordable. I would highly recommend, if you are looking for convenience, to live at the Welch Road Apartments. They were recently renovated last year as well.
Great, thank you. For those of you who are wondering why Kate's lips don't seem to be moving when she's talking, it's from, I think she has some delayed video. It's not, she's not a ventriloquist that I'm aware of. However, we should be especially thankful that she's joining us, so she's on the night team and was working last night. So anyway, moving on to the next question. There is a question here asking about the new hospital and how that transition is going to go. Maybe Neera, I know you've been involved a lot in that from the medicine side. Do you want to address that?
For those of you that joined late, my name is Nira. I'm one of the associate program directors, and I'm actually fortunate enough to sit on this big space and planning cabinet that meets actually twice a month, looking at the new hospital coming alive, being constructed, and how the transition from our current space to that new space will occur. It's actually a very intricate process. The new hospital is going to be amazing, and it's all about the patient experience. So currently, most of our hospital beds, except for the isolation beds, are shared rooms with a curtain dividing the rooms. However, in the new hospital, there'll be 13-foot windows on one wall. Each room will be private to not only allow for the patient to have some peace and quiet while they heal, but also to allow families to stay comfortably overnight if they wish to. In addition, there'll be state-of-the-art technology, so sensors on the bed measuring just about everything, electronic whiteboards, so instead of the dry erase whiteboards in the room, everything will be electronically captured so that patients could even type in aspects that they want to learn more about, diabetes, etc., whatever new diagnoses that are common, and maybe even get information that they'll be able to understand. There's talk about having it in multiple languages, and we already have many interpreters, but just having some electronic media in different languages for patients, because we do have so much diversity in our patient population. The anticipated date of opening of the new hospital is either December 2017 or early 2018. So if you match here, you will get to experience the new hospital, and I think it will be fabulous for your training experience.
Right, thank you. I'm going to quickly run through a couple of brief questions.
Ron, can I make one quick announcement, please? Just a couple of things I'm hearing from the side. For a few of you guys, if you're unable to ask questions, please make sure you're logged into Google. As long as you're logged into Google, you should be able to ask questions. There'll be a grid on the upper right where you can click on the question answer plugin. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you. So a couple of quick questions that I can briefly address. One was asking if Stanford is participating in iCompare. As I think most people know, iCompare is a randomized study of residency programs who choose to participate in it, looking at the current work hour restrictions versus much more liberalized work hour restrictions. Stanford is proudly participating in iCompare. We're actually one of the fairly few programs in the western part of the country who's participating, and we think that this is an incredibly important trial. If you think about it, work hour restrictions have largely been done based on opinion, consensus, and without much data, and this is a question that can be asked and data collected, so we're delighted to be participating. We have been randomized to the control arm, and as many places need to be for any study worth its salt. So the current schedule that we have this year will look very much similar to what you will have next year. We're proud participants in that. There was a question about if Stanford allows moonlighting. The answer is yes for the PGY3 year. As Jim said, certainly, well, residents don't need to moonlight to afford to live here and that sort of thing, but a number of them choose to do so, and again, in the PGY3 year, that is allowed. There's a question about if there's going to be a cap in the number of residents in a given pod. The answer is no. We fully expect that some of the pods will be bigger than others, and among the 7 pods, you will have your choice, and it's not competitive. You will be able to choose whichever one you wish. Maybe another question that was asked, and I'll turn to Dr. Harrington to answer, and that is changes anticipated at Stanford over the next few years.
So a lot of changes at Stanford over the next few years, all of which I think are exciting for medical education. We are a growing healthcare system. We've added almost 150 faculty over the last 2.5 years, and these are faculty across all areas of the department, all areas of science, all areas of clinical care, all areas of research. We're also growing throughout the region. Stanford is taking over a community hospital in the East Bay. We are expanding our community affiliations. What does this mean for medical education? I think it's very positive for medical education. What it gives you is more opportunity. That we'll be having opportunities to rotate through some of our community sites. We'll be having opportunities to rotate through community hospital, and a community hospital, a very large community hospital. And I think it gets to that earlier comment about the diversity of our patient population that Wendy and Jim talked about. This adds to it. We now have a new ambulatory rotation up in Oakland that has a very diverse patient population, and our residents are beginning to rotate up there through a primary care in medical subspecialty clinics. So a lot of opportunity in these changes.
Great, thank you. Another question asked, do residents have any difficulty obtaining interviews and matches at their top destinations for some of the more competitive subspecialties? I'll give my thoughts, and maybe can get the thoughts from our current and recent residents. So first off, I would say that the data largely speaks for itself. Our residents have done incredibly well in the fellowship match in the last several years. The vast majority of time getting their top choice and rarely going beyond one of their top couple of choices. This is true for all of the subspecialties, including the most competitive ones. You should have the data in your brochures in terms of the matches up until this year's fellowship match, and for those of you who joined us after match day, again this year you got the data as well about another extremely successful fellowship match. So it's something that we're very proud of. Our residents really do get to go on and do what they wish to do. I don't know, Jim, maybe having recently gone through the process, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I absolutely second Ron's sentiments that I'm extremely proud of this year's match list and last year's match list. We have done extremely well in the subspecialties, and that speaks to the mentorship of our faculty and also the innovation of Stanford. When our residents finish their training, they absolutely leave with a strong clinical experience, but they have each of them a unique bent to their careers, whether it's research, quality improvement, medical education, global health, and that makes them extremely strong candidates. I can say that it is a fact that all of our residents matched within their top choices, and in extremely competitive programs on the East Coast and on the West Coast and throughout the country. It's something that I think we're all very proud of at Stanford.
Great. Another question directed at residents, chiefs, and former residents, asking, would you mind commenting on the level of autonomy that you have? Sorry, I just lost the question here. The level of autonomy you have on the wards and in the critical care units at the various hospitals.
I can comment on that, and I apologize for the video. My camera isn't working, but this is Kate, and you're seeing a picture of my wedding 5 years ago. So, yeah, regarding the autonomy on the wards, there's a great amount of autonomy, and it really just depends on the comfort level of the resident. You know, I think one of the great things about Stanford is, yes, there is autonomy available, but never are you left just by yourself with no backup. And I think that's extremely important, because autonomy with no backup can be scary, especially when you're an intern and you just don't have that much experience. So that's one thing I've really appreciated about the program, is just the level of autonomy we have, but also, you know, always with somebody to help if we need it. Regarding autonomy in the critical care unit, I think, you know, probably the most autonomy in critical care that we get is in the CCU, which is at Stanford, the cardiac critical care unit, where you're the kind of supervising, in charge person there overnight, or the only person there overnight. The fellow and attending can come in if necessary. And then also in the VA ICU, as the resident, you're essentially acting as the fellow overnight, sort of corresponding with your fellow over the phone, but really going to all the codes and rapid responses on the floors, helping triage sick patients on the floors, and then, of course, managing the patients in the ICU. So it's a super valuable experience, and then we all get the chance to do those rotations multiple times as residents. So.
Excellent, thank you. Abraham, if you don't mind taking this question, asking, what is the structure of the Stanford 25 sessions?
So right now our structure is that these sessions are held every other Thursday. They take the place of morning reports. So a typical session would be one where whoever the teacher is, and we have a fairly long list of various faculty who teach various things. I think Neera just did one on the oral exam. Ron is doing one for Pulsus Paradoxus, and so typically the instructor will have either a real patient or a standardized patient. They will demonstrate and teach. Then there will be an opportunity for all of you to practice on the patient or on a standardized patient. And then typically we also like to watch you teach it. So a couple of times last year we actually separated the room. We had interns in one room and the residents in another room with a divider. And we did two different things in each room, and then at a certain point we pull back the barrier and have the senior residents teach the interns what they just learned. So our hope is that you build up a repertoire of things that you can trot out at the bedside, little vignettes, and build up your teaching skills, not just your technique. Very much part of the Stanford 25 is a very, very vibrant website, which Errol has everything to do with. We get several thousand visitors, and it's got a very active blog. If you haven't signed up for it, please sign up to be, or like us on Facebook. Is that the right word, Errol?
Yeah, absolutely. That works.
And anyway, that's a short summary of what we do, and we're growing every year and excited to keep doing it.
Excellent. Thank you. Question that maybe I can turn to our current residents and maybe Abraham on, which is to what capacity the Stanford residents are involved in teaching medical students, both in sort of the informal way that occurs on the wards and also opportunities beyond that. Maybe Jim or Kate, do you want to take first?
Oh, yeah. I'm happy to start. I think the medical students here are a really valuable resource to our hospital. They attend all our morning reports and our noon conferences. And as one of the chief residents, I have the privilege of doing teaching with the medical students as well. I think Abraham and the faculty can also speak to the teaching that they obtain from the School of Medicine, but from the resident standpoint, our medicine consult residents often take the medical students aside to do teaching. The new medical education pathway, one of our second-year residents, Mala, is trying to spearhead more medical student teaching as well from the residency standpoint. And of course, every day on our medicine teams, our senior residents and our interns really see it as an honor and a privilege to continue teaching the medical students at the bedside and in the room with didactics as well. I think this is a great experience for both the residency and the medical students. It's a two-way interaction and an exchange of knowledge that we deeply value.
If I might just add to that, I think our residents are phenomenal teachers, and the evidence for that is that every year we have more and more students choosing to go into internal medicine. And although I think some of the credit belongs with the faculty, most of it belongs with the residents who are really with them all the time and who are doing all the bulk of the teaching. So one of the things we hope will happen with the pod structure is that we have more opportunities to formalize the residency teaching of the students. So we're really looking forward to that.
Great. Wendy, it looked like you had some thoughts as well.
Oh yeah, I have many thoughts because talking about innovation, the medical school is an amazingly innovative place. They have a beautiful new building with outfitted classrooms, and as such, there's so many innovative education things going on with the med students that the residents just, if you have interest, you can participate in. So as a resident, I had an interest in medical education, something I do now, I can, and they have all sorts of opportunities to where you observe the students, you get taught how to give them feedback, you can participate directly in, there's a faculty development center here that does workshops to teach faculty from all around the country and even the world how to teach medical education, and residents have an opportunity to do that workshop. I think it's about a 2-week workshop, at least once or twice a year. So all these opportunities have existed, and they're only going to continue to grow through the pathways of distinction, I imagine.
If I could add one more thing, there's actually even funding for residents to mentor medical students. One of our most beloved residents, Jason Bartos, got funding from the Society of Physician Scholars at SSPS, where he was doing research, and he actually had funding to get a medical student to join him to help him do his research as a resident, and actually pay that medical student as well and fund his research. So absolutely, there's funding and support from the university and from our residency for these endeavors.
Thanks, Jim, for bringing up Stanford Society for Physician Scholars. I mentioned there's actually a couple of our residents this year who also got funding for joint projects with medical students here. And the Society, it's a really great opportunity. Many of our residents take part in it. It's run by the medical school. And you have the opportunity both to get faculty mentorship through that as well as to be a mentor for medical students. So it's really a lot of fun. Next question, maybe I'll address, which was how resident concerns are brought up and how they're actively addressed. So we have a fantastic group called Committee on Residency Reform, or CRR. We meet the first Tuesday of every month, and there are elected representatives from each residency class, and but all residents are encouraged to come. We have a great turnout every month. This is a meeting with action. It's not a meeting where you sit around and just talk a lot. We come in with an agenda. Any resident can put anything on the agenda, and we talk, debate. If we need to look into something, we'll do so and bring it back the next month, and we'll vote and we'll make decisions. We really try to be very vibrant, really reactive to resident concerns. I don't know if maybe Jim or Wendy or Kate, if you have any other thoughts on that.
I mean, sure, I can add quickly. CRR is a great opportunity. I mean, I cannot just emphasize how important it is. We come, we make decisions, and changes are made like the next day or the next month. I've never really experienced something so proactive before, and when you're working so hard as a resident to be able to see change or perceived problems changed so quickly and so proactively in such a supportive environment is just fantastic. It means so much, and I will say, I've seen several things change over the years, all for the positive, and it's just amazing to see how the program can grow and change in front of your eyes. It's really exciting, and residents get a lot of, we have a lot of fun going to CRR, and we get a lot of joy out of seeing the change. So it's a great experience.
Great, thank you. Next question, I imagine many of us could answer, and that is a favorite thing to do in Palo Alto. Let's see, maybe we can start. Whomever wants to start. Nira, you look like you want to say something.
Well, I'll say coming from Texas, where pretty much no one bikes unless you're doing like the MS 150, which is the bike ride to Austin, and it's just really so hot, and sidewalks and bike trails aren't as well developed. Being outdoors is amazing. From running, jogging with your pets, I jog with my baby stroller. I love doing that, and I'll also say that I love doing yoga. I taught it for a decade, and I have never seen a place where there are so many yoga studios per capita as there are in the Bay Area. So for those of you that enjoy yoga, there's a ton of things to do in that realm. We also like to eat, and the restaurants here are amazing.
How about others?
I would echo the opportunity for outdoor activities. It can't be emphasized enough. When you have one day off a week and you're working really hard on the inpatient services, wards, and ICU, I mean, it's like to be able to get that day off and drive 45 minutes to the beach or to San Francisco, or go to the Stanford Dish, which is 10 minutes away, really on the Stanford larger campus, and it's just this big, huge walking area, nature preserve. It's amazing. I mean, there are just so many opportunities near and far, and yeah, the food in Mountain View and Palo Alto is fantastic and really easy. You don't have to go to San Francisco to get have a great night out.
Wendy, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah. The Bay Area is so diverse that there's always some sort of cultural event happening somewhere, be it like the Greek festival or the Salvadorian festival. There's such a wide variety of restaurants that's a big part of living in the Bay Area. And also, along to echo what Kate said, something I've heard said by people who aren't even in medicine about the way the Bay Area is, it's the epicenter of any kind of interest you could potentially have. The city is not far. The skiing is not far. The Yosemite Park is not far. The ocean's not far. Everything is nearby and within a weekend's trip.
Great. Thank you. All right. There's a question. There was a follow-up to one of the recent questions, which is examples of changes that have happened through CRR. I can start with one, and then maybe turn to some of our house staff, recent house staff as well. So the one I'll highlight because it was the most impactful was from a couple of years ago when at the time, new work hour restrictions were coming on, and programs all around the country were struggling with how best to do it, because particularly the 16-hour rule for interns really meant that you had to completely tear down and rebuild how you structured the inpatient services. What we got at the time was instructions, a charge, if you will, from our chair, who said that your only two restrictions are, one, the ACGME work hour rules, and two, whatever makes the most sense educationally, and not to be constrained by, well, how is the hospital going to take care of this patient or that patient, that our job was really to come up with what educationally made the most sense. So we pulled the CRR group together and actually came up with a full one-day retreat. And the goal of the retreat, we laid out the plans. The plans are, I should say, again, the charge from our chair at the beginning, and over the course of a day, came up with the plan that was a complete transformation of the way the inpatient services were structured at the hospitals, as well as what patients were going to be cared for by residents, et cetera. That's, to this day, almost exactly what we're still using. I can say many programs around the country, when the changes happened, really struggled for some time because it was such a transformative change of what you had to do. And within our program, actually, it worked extremely well. And I think the reason it did was, A, because we were really designing it based on education and education alone, and B, because it was designed by the residents. Specifically, the people who were invited to that day were the residents, chief residents, and program directors, and that's it, because we wanted that to be priority one. Maybe I'll pass along to some of our residents as well, who can give any thoughts they have.
Yeah, I think that a really important change we made last year was after a couple years of feedback from current interns. It was really clear that the amount of inpatient, the ratio of inpatient to outpatient activity was likely too high, and it was just making for a really hard intern year. So we wanted to, and then we really also wanted to make some more primary care outpatient time available for interns to sort of decide interests for later in residency. And with the one CRR meeting, we were able to adjust the schedule, and it was really made with the inpatient hematology rotation. So changing the number of residents and the number of interns on the inpatient hematology rotation allowed interns to have more outpatient time. And the reason I bring this up is because it was a really passionate discussion about what the change should be, because people just are, once you're in this program, people are extremely dedicated to it. And with the inpatient hematology rotation, there were some group of people that felt like, not having as many interns do that rotation would, take away some opportunities, and then there were other people that felt very strongly in the other direction. So it led to a very passionate exchange, which I think led to a great outcome in the end. And I think, we're into it now 6 months, and the change is really effective and definitely was the right decision. So I think that's great. People can have a safe place to sort of express their opinions and their concerns, and it really leads to positive change.
Right. Thank you. I'll move next to a question, and maybe I'll give a couple thoughts and then turn to Wendy. And that is, the question says, I was wondering if there are any opportunities for resident outpatient rotations at community healthcare clinics, such as free clinics. One in particular was cited. This is something that our residents very much participate in. I'll highlight first off that with the expansion of Stanford Healthcare in general that Dr. Harrington was talking about earlier, we really are taking advantage of this on behalf of our residents. So, for example, this year we launched a new rotation up in Oakland at a primary care clinic that also has medical subspecialties on site. So a diabetologist, for example, a rheumatologist doing joint injections, and really great opportunity for residents, particularly who are interested in primary care, care to go up, work in a different clinic setting, a different patient population has been very popular rotation. Now, the free clinics in particular, we actually have all our residents spend some time in. We think it's an important role for academic medical programs in general. And maybe I'll turn to Wendy, because I know you've had involvement, I think, both as a medical student and as a resident. So maybe can you address?
Sure. I'll also mention that one of the 3 sites that you can do your continuity clinic is the San Mateo County Clinic. It's called the Fair Oaks Clinic, which has very much a community FQHC feel to it. So if you're interested in that, that's something you could select when you join the program. So that's one thing right there. About the free clinics, they actually have a lot of history. They've been around for about 20. The older one's been around for about 20 years. It's a very vibrant community. It's mostly med student and undergrad run. I'm actually going to be one of the co-medical directors of the one down at Pacific Free Clinic. So we're looking to finding ways that the residents come and they're essentially the attending. There's an attending on site, but the residents are the ones doing primarily the supervising of the medical students. The medical students present to them, and we're seeing a wide. It's interesting actually with the Affordable Care Act. We're seeing a very interesting different kind of patient population, and a lot of the work that's going on there is how do we connect people to ongoing care at Stanford or elsewhere. So there's a lot of room and for opportunity. There's a lot of opportunities, a lot of room for growth, and a lot of excitement in the free clinics currently.
Great, thank you. All right, a question about writing, and it question says, what opportunities are there for residents to develop their writing skills, whether it's scientific writing or narrative medicine? I'll say on the scientific writing, of course, some of this is one-on-one with mentors. The vast majority of our residents do research, scholarly work during their residency. You can even have a protected research month in each of your second and third year, and we're delighted to give them to every resident who wants to, who has a faculty mentor and a project to work on, which is, again, the vast majority of our residents. We're hoping, as part of the new clinical research pod, that we are going to be creating a course on clinical research, and part of that we will plan to be to look at what makes for a not only good clinical trial design, but writing things up. But let me turn to Abraham, maybe, who can talk about if there's any opportunities for individuals who are interested in narrative medicine.
There's actually a Center for Ethics and Humanities. You're a Center for Ethics with a humanities arm to it. And many medical students choose narrative as one of their areas of distinction. They're the tracks that they have to choose. And we've had residents from time to time who've chosen to attend some of those sessions or take an actual course. But there's also a writing community here that's quite vibrant of people at Stanford, mostly in the medical area. They're called the Pegasus Group, and it includes some very distinguished writers who have been at it for many years in this group. They meet, I think, once a month, and they actually have public performances now and then. There's one coming up very shortly. And then I think separate from that, Stanford University at large has a very active creative writing program with some very well-known writers who are there, such as Tobias Wolff, who wrote This Boy's Story, and Elizabeth Talent, just to mention a few. Adam, I'm blanking on his last name, but he won the Pulitzer Prize last year. So there's a very, if you're interested in committing yourself to developing your own voice, if you are also wanting to sort of build community, there's plenty of opportunity around here.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
I must say we also have a one of our faculty, Nidhi Rohatgi, does a noon conference didactic session on how to write medical manuscripts, which is actually, it's taught from a very basic level for those who've never done it before. It gives you really good pointers about how to organize your manuscript well before you start, and how to think about writing the methods section earlier than you would actually anticipate. And she gives that lecture once or twice a year, and actually posts the lecture onto MedHub, which is one of our main residency sites, so that you can access it anytime throughout your residency.
Excellent. Okay, I'm just scrolling through to see any questions that we haven't hit. Okay, there's a question, what's the conference schedule like for a standard inpatient-outpatient week, and are there protected didactic times? I can address that. We believe strongly that that didactic time needs to be protected, that if you look at what's happened over the last decade plus with work hour restrictions, that the easy thing to cut back on is didactic time and start eliminating conferences, combining conferences, etc. Certainly believe strongly that there's a role both for a case-based sort of conference, the classic morning report, as well as a more didactic conference, although we're actually just recently making a change to make them a little crisper, more interactive. So what we have is we have every day of the week except for Wednesday when we have grand rounds, we have a morning report. The morning report is rigorously protected for all of our R2s and R3s, and really encouraged, if possible, for our interns to come. We get a very nice turnout of our interns. There's also an intern report one day a week that is, of course, rigorously protected for our interns. On Wednesday, we have grand rounds instead. That is a protected time for all of our house staff. There's then a core curriculum conference that we have daily as well. That, again, is a protected time. For those who are on outpatient rotations, where it would not be practical for them to leave in the middle of clinic for a morning report, we instead have a protected morning all Thursday morning for everybody who's on an outpatient rotation, and that is for a curriculum that's dedicated towards outpatient medicine, as well as a combined with a case-based morning report conference. Any other thoughts, Jim, as somebody who runs a lot of conferences?
Oh, yes. You know, I absolutely second that. We place an exceptional value on your ability to go to the didactic teaching despite the changes in the work hour expectations. And as an attending right now, I place an enormous emphasis on getting my team, including my interns, to resident report. So when you come to resident report, you'll see a lot of interns there, medical students there. The chief residents run the M&Ms. You'll have an M&M every month at Stanford. And at our VA hospital, you'll have a multidisciplinary conference also run by our chief residents, which are one of the most highly regarded conferences at the VA hospital. At both sites, at all three sites, there's a morning report run in parallel. There are noon conferences by invited speakers, and these are speakers that we have vetted out that are going to give you great teaching on their specialty, on their area of expertise. I think really the didactic teaching is a shining star of the Stanford Internal Medicine Residency program. It's something that we value as chief residents, that our program leadership values as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, we're probably getting close to the end of our time here as we are approaching an hour long here. Maybe I will turn to each member of the panel for any final thoughts that they have. Maybe start with Dr. Harrington.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun to just see it play out over the airwaves here. I was not sure how long we'd be on because you know what kind of interest there was. Certainly, you all out in the audience have demonstrated there's a lot of interest in this type of interaction, and so we look forward to expanding the way we use innovative tools to communicate with each other. So thanks for joining us. We think this is a good representation of what you'll get at Stanford.
Dr. Verghese, any final thoughts?
Yeah, maybe I might add that you know, I've been here 7 years, and I've been very impressed with how much the residents have shaped what we now have. So, I mean, you're talking to Jim and Kate, and I think every resident who comes here has left their stamp on the program. So I think if you come here, you also have the opportunity to not just bring your interests, but also leave a mark and help us continue to get better and better. So enjoy the hangout, and thanks for letting me be part of it.
Thank you. Neera, any final thoughts?
You know, one thing that continues to impress me about Stanford is just the collegiality amongst the house staff and the faculty, and I think that makes the whole training experience very collaborative and very intimate. And I remember at one of the dinners before the interview days, the dinners that we have at the 3 seasons, I saw residents hugging each other and just so excited to see each other, and I mean, that's just a very warm thing to see, and I think it's all very sincere and genuine. I love being here. I feel like I have my dream job, so I really do hope that you consider just kind of the resident spirit when you make your decision about residency programs.
Thank you. Wendy?
I would echo exactly what Neera says. I've I arrived on my first day of med school, and I have never left, and I'm now here on the faculty. So I think it speaks a lot. Someone just asked me on the interview exactly to give them one word, and as corny as it may sound, I really think it's humanism. I really think that Stanford seeks to cultivate and just practice what everything you can imagine humanism would be about, whether it be with your co-residents, the attendings, and the patients, and that's just something that is valued and very much practiced here, and one of the reasons I love it here.
Thank you. Errol, you're not only a technology expert, but a former resident here and academic hospitalist. Do you have any thoughts?
Absolutely. Ron, first off, I wanted to thank you, and I'll say a few closing words at the end, just housekeeping stuff. But from a program standpoint, I did my residency here. I finished residency 3.5 years ago, and as a matter of fact, most of the people on this Hangouts today, not only have I considered them mentors, but I probably can say the most important thing is that I still consider them mentors today. The thing about Stanford is we don't just create great clinicians here. We create great leaders, and it has a lot to do with the people you're watching right now and listening to, but also just the culture that we have here at Stanford. This is an amazing place to practice, not just from the environment of where Stanford's located, but from the environment of what Stanford represents and how we implement leadership and education and all the things that we do. This is an amazing place, and I'm really lucky to have been here, and I think that anybody who comes here is going to have just as good, if not a good experience that I've had.
Thank you. Jim?
Oh, thanks, Ron. I just wanted to say that it's really an honor to be hanging out with you, and many of you are my friends, Wendy and Kate, and my mentors as well, Bob, Nira, Abraham, Errol, and you, Ryan. This is, again, kind of a representation of Stanford. You are hanging out with your friends and your mentors. Really, I can't tell you of any program that I know of that does a Google Hangout, and this is a cool experience for me, as Bob had mentioned as well. I want to invite the applicants to send me an email if you have any questions. You're kind of...
I think we lost.
And I'm sure the rest of you can second that as well.
Kate?
Yeah, well, first of all, sorry for my technical difficulties, but I don't really have much to add. Thanks, for all the panel members. You guys all really said it all. I feel just lucky every single day to be a resident at Stanford. Residency is hard work, and you want to be in an environment that's rigorous academically and clinically, but also supportive and friendly, and that's what Stanford is. So I really hope that you consider our program, because I think you'll be happy here. It's an awesome place.
Thanks, Kate. I want to close my remarks by thanking everybody first for interviewing. I imagine most of you who are viewing this were people who interviewed with us over the last few months. This is an honor for us. We have the first difficult task of choosing from among over 2,000 applicants who are all really talented, and then we get to the true honor and privilege of meeting about 350 of the very best medical students from around the country. I have the particular privilege of getting to meet with every one of you, and it makes it really the most memorable and fun 3 or so months of the year for me every year. This year was no exception, so thank you everybody for coming. Thank you for coming and joining our inaugural Google Hangouts today. This has been a lot of fun, I think, for us all. I can tell you, I remember distinctly when I was in your shoes looking at residency programs, and I enjoyed the experience a lot. I told you about it on your interview days, and at the end of the day, I really felt that Stanford was going to be the best fit for me. I crossed my fingers and came out here, and I will just say that it has been everything I possibly hoped it could be and more. This really has become home for me, a place I really hope never to leave. We hope that many of you who are on this this broadcast today come and join us next year. I would second what Jim said. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. We'd be delighted to answer anything that'll help make your decisions easier. So thank you again. I'll turn to Errol for some final housekeeping details.
Okay, one last thing. I just also wanted to thank all the viewers for coming and watching today and asking really some great questions. We're going to take this and turn it on our YouTube channel, the Department of Medicine YouTube channel. If you just simply go to medicine.stanford.edu, we'll have links and ways to get to our YouTube channels. And also, we'll invite you guys to come and ask more questions. Those people who couldn't make it to the live chat today, feel free to put comments down there. We really take all questions very seriously, and we want to be able to answer all of them. I hope we got to all the questions today, but also, please, if your questions weren't answered today, drop them in the comments. We'll be watching that very closely, and we'll make sure the proper person gets the opportunity to answer your questions. Also, please follow us on social media. We have a lot of us are on Twitter. Some of the most active people you'll see on Twitter is our department chair, Bob Harrington, as well as Abraham Verghese. Rather than giving you all the usernames, if you simply go to the medicine.stanford.edu, you'll see a list of all the tweets that come out, and you can easily find and follow people if you'd like to, as well as follow us on Facebook. Again, guys, thank you so much for joining us today, and a final thank you to our leadership for being here today and spending the last hour answering questions, just to show you how much we care about education and how important the program is to us. We have a wonderful faculty here at Stanford and do amazing things, and this is a great sample of who we are. So again, thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you with us sometime in the future. Okay, guys. Thanks again. I'm going to go ahead and stop the broadcast. Everybody have a good day. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.